All right, I think we're back doing a mic check. Looks like we're back from break. Yo, Terrence, that's awesome. Hopefully, you had a chance to get away from your computer, take a break, stretch your legs. I know I did. It's kind of good to do that after a while. Got the video going. I saved the last video, and we're back. Now, let me stop the timer, so it's just flashing at us right now. Okay, so apologies, I forgot to start the timer in the first place, but I did manage to work it out, so we're back at 10:45, and we talked about some advanced draw commands, polyline and rectangle, advanced modify commands, offset, fillet, chamfer, explode, and then we're about to get into our exercise, our master bedroom drawing. But questions on anything we've covered so far, yesterday or this morning, questions at all? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. Okay, so good to go. Awesome. Let's do this. Let's do the morning. We'll do the morning knowledge check. See how I'm doing with communicating my information. I think I've got 2 questions here, and I'll go ahead and select. I'm going to need my glasses for this. One moment. It's day 2 right there. Morning. I'm going to send this out. Day 2. Morning. Just confirm it. Here comes the test. I'm going to launch it. That'll freeze my screen. And close. All right, cool. All right, so welcome back. Make sure my screen is showing. I think people can show my screen. My audio is going. I can see my webcam. So, so before the break, we talked about some advanced draw commands, advanced modify command, or commands. And I'll come into AutoCAD for a second, and I'm going to just do a quick just recap, or the commands that we'll use will be probably rectangle will be easier than polyline, or a few steps shorter. The offset command, I used offset to create a 3.5-inch thick wall appearance. Used offset to create cutting edges for the windows after using explode. I can select these lines and use the explode command on them again. It won't have any effect. They've been exploded. They've been reduced down to the farthest point they can be. On the command line, it says 12 were not able to, 24 were not able to be exploded. So explode, there's a kind of short list of things that can be exploded. Block references, like this door. Polylines can be exploded. I don't have that spline anymore. I probably could have, I don't know if I can explode a spline. Not that you need to know that, but if I kind of just draw a couple sections of spline, if I select this and click explode, yeah, you can't explode a spline. Some types of text can be exploded. This is multi-line text. It's going to tell me that. It's not giving me my tooltip, but there it is. M-text is multi-line text. If I select this and explode it, it's now single-line text, just text. I don't know why I want to do that, but some people will. They'll explode stuff. Things that can't be exploded, that just can't be exploded. The explode command won't hurt things that can't be exploded. So we use explode to sort of break up the two polylines, and then use offset to create cutting edges. In our drawing exercise, we'll have two windows, or one window at the top of the right side of the floor plan, one at the bottom. So I'll go offset, 1'6" is my distance, enter. I'll left click that topmost horizontal line, move down the screen, left click. I'll use the same value on the bottom, left click, go up and left click. And then I'll use the offset again. I'll just restart offset to a distance of, or for a distance of 3 feet, enter. Left click the new line I made earlier, move down and left click that other new line I made earlier, move up and left click, and then I'll just cut through these with trim. So trim, enter, selecting the line, the portions of a line I want to go away. And there we have it. So I've just trimmed out the window opening. So the exercise will be offset and trim, a little offset and extend, and then the chamfer command will come into play. Do I have a place where I can put a chamfer? I'll put a chamfer in what I was saying was my office. So I'll use chamfer, chamfer. Now the distance 1 and distance 2 are already set to 2 feet, but I'll click distance, pretending that choosing the distance is 0. Distance 1, I'll type 2 feet and hit enter. Distance 2, I'll just type 2 feet and hit enter again. And then I can left click the bottom horizontal, left click the right vertical, and that's what creates that sort of beveled corner. When we go to create the chamfer for the inside of the closet, it's going to be most effective to just offset. Use the offset command like so, and that'll create the illusion of a wall thickness in that chamfered wall. If we were to try to chamfer the interior wall with the same chamfer distance, there we go, it creates a little bit of a overly thick wall, thicker than 3.5 inches. So offset probably the easiest way excuse me, to maintain that 3.5-inch thick wall. And those are the commands that we'll need to create to get this floor plan started. Right, rectangular polyline, offset, explode, more offset, trim, offset, extend, and chamfer. So let's get into the exercise. Unless you have any questions at all, I'm sort of monitoring the chat window. I'm going to close a few drawings here. So I'm going to close the mod, and you don't have to do this, but I'm going to hit the X on the modify command drawing. I'm going to close that. I'm not going to save it. Close my door drawing, close the window drawing. If it asks me to save it, I'll save it. And so now I have bedroom manual and residential as my two open drawings. And I kind of want to have them both open at the same time. Sort of zoom out. And, sorry, Facebook wants me to talk to it. I don't have time for that right now. So I'm going to show you this in sort of the printed mode here. Hey, Terrence. Oh wow, okay. Let me know when you're all set back up. It's all right. I think your mic's open too. I can hear something. And now I hear nothing. You're good. Okay. Blue screen. That's never good. As happened to me during online training, it's very embarrassing for, I think more so for me, because I'm like, boom, everyone's kicked out of training all of a sudden. I'm going to split my screen, and I'll sort of walk through the process of getting this drawing put together or set up, or whatever you want to call it. So first thing I'll do is, in AutoCAD, I'm going to go to the View tab of the ribbon, and I'll tile my screen vertically. Now what that'll do is it'll chop my screen into 3 pieces because the Start tab is going to be shown by default. Well, I don't want to show the Start tab, so I'll just minimize it, excuse me, and I'll try that again. I'll tile vertically, and that allowed me to show just the screens that I want to show, my residential drawing and the bedroom manual drawing. And whoops, you said you disconnected. Okay, cool. Okay, I got you. Yeah, that could do it. When things are connected or disconnected or whatever, it can be sort of disruptive to your computer and so forth. So, but you're back. That's cool. All right. I'm going to get into the book here. And so we've done a few commands here. Explode, fillet and chamfer. We didn't use stretch yet, but we have used offset. And then I'm going to pan over, and the drawing we're about to get into is the drawing we see here. I'm going to copy this content and I'll paste it in my drawing, so I'm not bouncing back and forth again. Let's see if I can make this work. Kinda. I'm going to zoom in on this, like so. So hopefully you were able to. I know Terrence just said you couldn't print yours out, but you can have it on screen. Hopefully, Matthew, if you have yours on screen, I know you have more than one monitor. You can refer to the bedroom manual drawing or the bedroom manual PDF. I've got a live drawing on the right-hand side, and the process of getting this started up is, make sure you have the residential drawing open. That's the drawing I'm in right now. This is a residential drawing. The File tab tells me so. So step 1, make sure you have your drawing from yesterday open, residential. Step 2, it says to confirm units are architectural, right? So there's really more than one way we can do this. One is you can just type. If I type UNI, I'm going to capitalize this, UNITS units, and hit enter. That gets you into the dialog box that we saw yesterday when we got this drawing underway. The units are architectural. Angle type is decimal degrees, that's fine. The precision is 1/16 for the length type, which I like that. It probably could be less precise. I don't like it to be as high as that 1/256 of an inch. I think that is excessive. It's not. They won't have a real need to be that high. And then precision on decimal, on angle is 0, that's fine. Insertion scale is inches, that's fine. All right. The traditional way that we had gotten into that dialog box was application menu, drawing utilities, units, architectural, and so forth. So almost every command in AutoCAD can be issued 2 to 4 different ways. Confirm drawing limits are 0, 0 to 50 feet, 50 feet. This might be an exception to the rule. The drawing limits, there's really not too many ways to issue this command. I'm going to just left click the command line and then type the word limits. I'll go LIMITS, limits. I'll hit enter. The command prompt says, or the command window says, specify lower left corner, and it's showing me 0 feet 0 inches, 0 feet 0 inches as that lower left corner. I'll just hit enter to accept it. And then the upper right corner, it says it's 50 feet 0 inches, 50 feet 0 inches. And that's good. I'm happy with that. I'll hit enter to check that. Another way you could check your units, not your units, your limits, I think. I'll try this. This is an experiment, so if it fails, sorry. But here's what it looks like. I'm going to type the word status, STATUS, enter. And I'll pull this over my left screen, if you will. Status tells me what's in the drawing. So I'm leaning in with my glasses so I can see this. So status, there's 272 objects in this drawing, path and name. The current file size is 281 KB. Model space limits are 0, 0 to 50 feet, 50 feet, and the view and the model space uses this much So this is another way to get there. Maybe it's TMI, too much information, but it's another way to find out just things about your drawing. Status, enter. I'll dismiss that for now. So next up we'll go to, it says to erase any existing geometry. So I've got a lot of line work in my drawing. I'm just going to do a Control A. Control A selects everything that is not locked or frozen. And we didn't talk too heavily about locked or frozen, but the layers have a locking icon. If most of my stuff is, I'm going to say all my stuff is on the A wall layer. If A wall were locked or frozen, none of this stuff could be deleted. I'd have to unlock and unfreeze. But Control A, and I'll Shift select. I'm holding my Shift key down, selecting the directions that I pasted here, and that allows me to take these or this pasted step-by-step little direction thing out of the selection set. So we've done step 1, we've opened residential. Step 2, confirm the units are architectural. Step 3, confirm the drawing limits are 0, 0 to 50 feet, 50 feet. Step 4, we've erased any existing geometry. Step 5, zoom extents. So now if I zoom extents, I'm just going to zoom, so I'm just seeing that. I'm just seeing my little direction blurb there. So I'll erase this, and then I'll zoom extents. So now we've got some catch-all notes here. Item 6, all walls are 3.5 inches thick. So the 3.5 inch dimension doesn't appear anywhere on this floor plan. So just know that your walls are all 3.5 inches thick. All door openings to be 2 feet 6 inches wide. That probably should say all doors, not door openings, because in the little closet, that's a 2 foot 6 inch door. In the big closet, 2 foot 6 inch door. In the water closet, 2 foot 6 inch door. Then we've got a 5 foot door. So that's a double door. So all doors are 5 feet wide, but the openings are not all. Now all the doors are 2 foot 6, but they're not all the openings are. I'm just being persnickety. Don't worry about it. Finally, all window openings are 3 feet wide, and the dimensions are for our reference only. So we'll add the dimensions on later this, probably after lunchtime. I think after lunchtime, because they're not developed yet. Like in the finished drawing, they're developed. They're good to go. They're ready to use. But in our drawing, the drawing I created yesterday, and perhaps Matthew you created yesterday, they're not really ready. So I'm going to select the little step-by-step directions. I'll get rid of that. Now I'll double-click the mouse wheel. Click, click. That zooms me out as far as I can go. I've zoomed extents. And then I'll pan a little bit. So I've panned so I can see my UCS icon, the little XY symbol, and I've panned so I can see the red horizontal grid line. I can see the green vertical grid line. So I'm probably zoomed out as just about as far as I can in this drawing. I'm going to be drawing walls for the majority of my time, or at least the beginning phases of this process. So I'm going to make sure the A wall layer is current. If you had any layer other than A wall current, you could click the little down arrow on what's called the layer window, or layer control window, or layer control. People use a few different terms for this window. Left click the name of the layer you want to be current, in this case A wall, and now your A wall layer is current. So I'm going to start with a rectangle. The overall dimensions of this floor plan are 16 feet 6 in the X, or the horizontal top of the plan, and then 31 feet 7 in the vertical. That's the left side of the plan. So I'll start with rectangle. In upper right corner of the draw panel, left click rectangle, and when the command prompt, sort of again habitually moving the crosshairs into the drawing window, the command prompt says specify first corner point. I'll type in 0, 0, enter. And that's a little less crucial right now, but if there's any potential you're going to share this drawing with other drawings, it's a good idea to sort of be on top of where your insertion point is, sort of relate it to 0, 0 to the extent you can. So I've started at 0, 0. Now the command prompt says specify other corner point, and my XY windows are present. The X window is open. My X is 16 feet 6. Then I'll hit comma, 31 feet 7, enter. And that's the result right there. But I'll do it one more time. I'll delete that. Rectangle, 0, 0, enter the first corner, 16 feet 6, comma, 31 feet 7, enter is the opposite corner. Once you have it drawn, it's a good idea to double check the dimensions. And I'm going to do that by selecting the rectangle and hovering over one of the corner points. I mean, it can't be one of the edge grips. The edge grips will give you a different menu and no measurement. The corners will give you the XY in this case. I'll hit escape to deselect that. So you can also do this. We used that distance tool yesterday, that yellow ruler icon. If I wanted to, it's a little more involved, but I'll go and left click on distance, move my crosshairs into my drawing window, specify first point, I'll left click the upper left corner, left click the upper right corner, and there's your 16 feet 6. I'll click distance again from the drop down menu, left click, and I'll go left click the upper right corner, left click the lower right corner, and that's the result there. So that allowed me to sort of measure the X and the Y, the horizontal and vertical of this. There we go. I was just updating my, I forgot to edit my email and my name, so you don't think I'm Prop Services, I'm Daron Moore. So let me know if you have any issues with that. You've created a rectangle. It's sort of the outer footprint of the floor plan. And a lot of times when I'm working on a drawing, if I have a markup, like I'm considering this drawing on the right-hand side of my screen, a markup, like an engineer mark this up with a red pen and said, hey, fix this or change this or just make this stuff, I would take my highlighter and I would go highlight the stuff that I've done. Like I've done my 16:6, I've done my 31:7. I would highlight those two things. And I'll hit escape to turn off the highlighter. Then I haven't done a whole lot in this drawing. I've checked the units, checked the drawing limits, created the rectangle, the proper size, erased any garbage. It's kind of a rude thing to say, but I've erased my doodles and created the rectangle. I'm going to save this. I'm going to save the drawing. AutoCAD auto saves, but it doesn't auto save to your project file. It auto saves. If I can hit F2, right there, that's an auto save right there. If you can see that, automatic save to C users MORD or MORD, that's my login, app data, local, temp, residential _1 _11983 underscore blah 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 blah. So this is a safety file or a save as file. By default, AutoCAD will create backup files for any drawing you're working on as sort of a safety net should AutoCAD crash and the drawing become corrupt if you've lost any data. So the autosave doesn't really back up your project file, so it's always a good idea to hit save. Hit save early in the process and frequently during the process. All right, so I've got the outer footprint, if you want to call it that, of this floor plan drawn. All my walls are 3.5 inches thick, so I'm going to use offset to create the inner face or inner footprint. Offset 3.5, enter. I'll left click this rectangle, move, missed it, left click the rectangle, move inside and left click, and there I have, now I've got one rectangle inside of the other. Again, I don't know if I can call them concentric, sorry about that, but they are, there's one inside the other. They do share a geometric center. That's one of your object snaps. You may not have seen this yesterday. endpoint, midpoint, center, geometric center. So if I had geometric center turned on in my object snap, and I was in a command that required point selection, and I pass over that rectangle, now you can't see it anymore, but there's a little blip there, and if I hover, there's the geometric center of that rectangle. So geometric center object snap works on polylines, closed or open. I'm going to turn that off for now. So there's nothing I can really do. I can't really use my highlighter to highlight the fact that I've created the inner rectangle. There's nothing that says 3.5 inches here. But now, I have a habit of sort of doing the same thing every time I draw this floor plan, and I draw it almost once a week, and I have for about 13 years. So I'm incapable of change right now. But what I'll do is I'm going to explode the rectangles so I can offset individual sides. My eyes are a little itchy if you see me in the video. I guess the pollen count is getting up. Anyways, I'm going to select, if I just do a Control A, I don't have anything else in this drawing with these two rectangles, but Control A guarantees I got them both. And then I'll hit Explode on the Modify panel underneath Erase, above Offset, Explode. And again, this command could not be any less dramatic. It just says Explode to found, and there we go. So I'm going to move forward with my life. What that allows me to do, exploding those two rectangles, breaks up the rectangles into, or polylines I should say, into 8 lines. And now these lines can be offset independently of each other, which I really kind of want that. In the beginning, I wanted to offset a rectangle and get a rectangle so I could have the appearance of a stud wall, but now I want to offset lines and get lines. I want to create cutting edges to make window openings. So like I did before, I'll offset 1'6" first. I'm going to zoom in here. I'll offset 1'6" first, and then 3 feet. There we go. So first offset, offset, offset. 1'6", enter. I'll left click the left vertical line, move right and left click, and then I'll come and left click. And I don't know if you can see, I'm sort of sneaking up. I'm kind of coming in like a cat from the outside. As you come in from the outside, the first line that will highlight is the outside line. So I want the outside line. I hover over it, left click it, move left and left click. And so now I've got these two lines that were created by a 1 foot offset. Now, I've got other 1'6" offsets I could do, but I won't do them all right now. I have a habit, again, I probably use the H word a lot. I have habits, and you think about habits you may have developed, well, things you've done over the years. Maybe it's you have habits when you're driving your car, habits when you park in your car, habits when you put on your coat or whatever. And I've been using AutoCAD for a long time, so I have habits where I'll do a couple offsets, and then I'll do a couple trims. Like I really can't trim right now. I need a couple more offsets. I need 2 3-foot offsets to get my window openings created. So I'll just restart offset, type in 3 feet, and press enter. Left click the new line I made in the last offset command, move right and left click that other new line, move left and left click. So there are my two sets of lines that I can use to cut the top windows and the bottom windows in, or make the window openings, I should say. I'll hit escape to end that command. Again, sometimes you don't have to do that. That's, again, it's a habit. I probably could have just started the trim command. I'm going to use the trim command next. So I'll left click trim, and in moving the command, the crosshairs into the drawing window, the command prompt is to select objects or select all. To select all objects as cutting edges is what that prompt is saying. I'm going to press enter, or I could have right clicked. So I've done an enter. All my lines are cutting edges now, and I can begin to start cutting those lines. So I'm going to hover between the vertical lines, and I'll just left click on the horizontal lines. That trims the horizontal line, making the window opening top and bottom on the right side, and I'll repeat that on the left side. I've just trimmed out the horizontal lines at the top, and I'll trim out the horizontal lines at the bottom. So here I've selected the UCS icon. I did not mean to do that. It is selectable. It allows you to make some certain changes to it, but I'm moving forward. I have created this window on the left side, window on the right side, window opening, and then I can left click on the cutting edges that I created earlier. I'll hit escape, and sometimes if hitting escape doesn't deselect the UCS icon, I might be able to right click my mouse. There might be a deselect option there. There isn't. So I'm going to hit save. I'll go save. Now it's not letting me deselect that. And there's not a deselect option. It says selected here. I would love to deselect it. Let me see if I can. I've just window selected everything. There we go. So I don't know if you saw what I did, but I accidentally clicked on the UCS icon. I didn't mean to. I should have zoomed in. I couldn't, hitting escape did not deselect it. So I just went a step further. I selected everything, and once I had everything selected, I did a right click on my mouse, and I had an option to deselect all. Deselect all. So in selecting more than I wanted, I didn't even want the UCS icon, but I selected more stuff, and then it deselected everything. And I'll hit save. It's probably a little bit early to hit save, but just to kind of build the habit. Again, I'm talking habits in AutoCAD. Using my highlighter, whoops, good. I'm glad, Terrence, that's great. Yeah, I try to make it kind of methodical. It's a little tough when you don't have the software, but you know, you'll have these videos, and hopefully that'll make sense. And plus, you can call me anytime with questions. Going to use the highlighter, and I'll just highlight what I've done so far. So I've got the 1'6", the 3 feet, the 1'6", the 3 feet. So just by default, I have the 7'6". Same at the bottom. This technique, again, this was shown to me by an engineer in my first engineering firm, and this kind of let the engineer know that I saw the markup, and it implies that I performed the work described by the markup. That wasn't always the case. So what I would do is staple the markup, the highlighted markup, to the new printout, hand it off to my engineer, and the engineer would double check my work. So there's no wrong next step, right? I've started working on exterior features like the window openings. I'll just move forward working on exterior features, the window openings, which will be, I have the 1'6" and the 3 feet at the top, and at the bottom, same thing as the windows in the horizontal wall, but it's a vertical wall now. So I'll go offset, I'll just type in 1'6" and hit enter. I'll left click the top horizontal line, move down the screen and left click the bottom horizontal line, move up the screen and left click. I tend to exaggerate how far I really need to move, only because of, if I undo this, right, if I kind of zoom in, if I left click and I only go so far away from my offset location, if my object snap catches me, of course I won't do it, I can't make it do the negative, but sometimes your line will shoot the wrong way, and if it can happen so fast you won't know why it did it, but usually it's the offset, it's the object snap that is causing that to happen. Alright, so I've got my 1'6" offsets. Now I'm going to do a 3 foot offset to make my window, or to create the cutting edges for the window opening. So offset, 3 feet, enter, left click that new horizontal line made by the last offset command. Same thing on the bottom. There we go. So I've got 2 more lines created. These are the cutting edges I need for the top vertical window, the bottom vertical window. And before I trim these, there's a window in between, a 3-foot window. It's not perfectly in the middle. It sits 7 feet 1 inch down the screen from the bottom edge of the top window. So I'm going to offset. Have a hard time talking. Offset that bottom line down the screen 7 feet 1. So I'll go offset 7 feet 1. Enter. Left click that new line I made earlier. Move down the screen and left click. So there's the top edge of the middle window. Restart offset 3 feet. Enter. Left click that new line. Move down and left click. So that the reason I didn't trim out my top and bottom windows first is I wanted to have a nice, decent length line to click on. You know, if these lines are 3.5 inches thick and they're in between two lines, they're trickier to select than if they were 1'6" and protruding out from between two lines. All right, so now I'll use my trim command. Trim, enter. Just left click the portions of the line work I wish to go away. There's no, more right way to do this. You should start with the cutting edges first. You should start with the wall lines first. Just whatever makes sense. It's like commutative property of addition and subtraction. You start at one end, you start at the other end, you end up at the same location when it's over. So I'll use my little highlighter. I have to zoom in a little bit or lean in a little bit. So I got that guy, got that guy, got that guy, that guy, that guy. Did the 7'1" and the 3 feet, so the remainder is a 12'6". I got that too. So that's almost all of the outside features have been cut in using the trim command. So how many commands have we used so far? We used, 1 was polyline or rectangle, 2 was offset, 3 was explode, 4 was offset and trim. And then those are the only commands we've used so far. It's like 4 or 5 commands to get as far as we've gotten so far. I've got one more exterior feature. It's a 5-foot door opening that sets down 10 feet 3.5 inches from the topmost horizontal line. If I kind of zoom in, and that's going to be weird, it's going to leave those highlights behind for a second, but the dimensions we see here, well, first of all, the anatomy of a dimension is you've got a dimension value, 10 feet 3.5 inches, floating over a dimension line, or sometimes in the middle of a dimension line, depends on the user preference. Then dimension line terminates at an extension line, and the extension line extends down to the object being dimensioned. So this extension line is pointing to the exterior wall line, and and then the opposite end of that dimension line points to the top edge of the door opening. So now I know which line to offset in which direction. So I'll go offset, make sure I get the right drawing open, offset. So this is kind of a complex distance, 10 feet 3.5. I can type it like this, 10 apostrophe 3.5, 10 feet 3.5, 10 feet 3.5. I'll press enter, and I'll left click the top horizontal line, move down the screen, and left click. So now what if that dimension was 10 feet 3 7/8? Some people know the decimal equivalent of 7/8. I know the decimal equivalent of half is 0.5. I know 3/4 is 0.75. I'm not showing off or anything. A quarter is 0.25. I don't know 7/8. I do have a little cheat sheet that has that, but let's say I don't want to look at it. I can do a dimension like this. I'll go offset 10 feet 3, and I want the 7/8. I put a hyphen in here, 3 hyphen 7//8, enter. 10 feet 3 hyphen 7/8. And then as I'm doing the offset, you can see it in my offset window. The value there is 10 feet 3 7/8. Well, you could always do that. You could always use your fraction, but for speed, if you know the decimal equivalent, it might be faster to do it the decimal way. So now I need a 5-foot offset. Offset, 5 feet, enter. Left click this horizontal line, move down the screen, left click. So that's all the cutting edges I need on the left side of that plan. So I'll open up trim, trim, enter. I'll left click the inside vertical and I'll left click the outside vertical. Now the green grid line is almost the exact same color as the wall lines that I chose to use. You can kind of see the green grid line extends beyond the top left side of the plan. It's present in the door opening, and then it's obscured by the wall line below the door opening. So don't let yourself be fooled to think you have to trim 100 times to get that line to go away. That green line is the grid, the drawing grid. I'll click off the horizontal lines, and there's the result there. I'll save that. That takes care of all the external or the exterior features. 7 window openings, 1 door opening, and the walls. So, you know, if I'm staying in consistent, I'll highlight like so. Oh yes, I didn't mean to be confusing, Terrence. When it says, Terrence says, where did the 7/8 come from? It's not on the plan, but that 10.5 inch measurement is on the plan. So I was just kind of letting you know, if you don't know the decimal equivalent of your fraction, I use 7/8. Do you know the decimal equivalent of 7/8? Okay, yeah, I don't either. I have a cheat sheet. I should know it. I've used it enough times. But here's this cheat sheet. This is not the right one. The other cheat sheet that I'm going to give you, it should have this. Let me do something. I'm going to open up the materials category, AutoCAD scale factor cheat sheet. I'm going to open this file. It's in my documents. All right, is this different? Yes, this is a different one, and it's a little obscured by all my markups and stuff, but 7/8 is 0.875, right? I probably could have, this little cheat sheet that I've uploaded, I actually just downloaded this from the materials area. It just seemed to make sense to put this fraction to decimal chart on here. Then there's some AutoCAD commands, some control. Have I used any of these yet? I haven't used any of these yet, but we'll use some of these. And then some people like keyboard shortcuts. So there's a list of keyboard, they're called command aliases in AutoCAD. So I've got a list of keyboard shortcuts you can use. And then later today we'll use these scale factors to help us size. We'll use a scale factor chart to help us size our text. So that, and it didn't mean to be confusing, but I am good at it. So the 7/8 was just an example of some other fraction that might raise its head, and how to answer, how to input. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They won't all be great examples, but all right. There's no wrong next move here. There's whatever makes the most sense to you. Out of habit, I tend to work sort of top to bottom, left to right. So working top to bottom, the next thing to put in is this horizontal wall that almost perfectly bisects the floor plan, with the exception of this 4-foot opening. In plan view, this 4-foot opening could be an arch, it could be a doorway. It certainly terminates at a ceiling that we can't see. So I'm going to use the offset command, and I'll offset, again, I'll zoom in. The bottom line of the 2 top lines, I'll use the bottom one. I'm going to offset it down the screen 15 feet 6. So I'll go offset 15 feet 6, enter, left click this bottom horizontal line, move down, and left click. So that line doesn't really look like the line in the markup, But when I get done with it, it will. Now, all my walls are 3.5 inches thick, so I'm going to offset this line down 3.5. So I'll restart offset, 3.5, enter. Left click that horizontal line, move down the screen and left click. I'm going to pause for some LaCroix, hold on. There we go, I love that stuff. So I'm going to hit escape, and the next command I'm going to use, we haven't used this command in the exercise yet. I'm going to use the extend command to extend these two horizontal lines out to make contact with the interior vertical lines of this floor plan. So trim and extend are in the same fly out button. I'm going to use the drop down where trim is. I'll click extend, and then I'll just hit enter. Enter. Now everything in this drawing is a boundary. Right? I can extend to anything. I'll hover left at the midpoint and left click the line. When I see the preview, I extend left. Hover right at the midpoint. If I've got a boundary, I'll see a preview. I'll left click to confirm it. Hover, left click, hover, left click. And there's this wall, air quotes, these two lines represent a wall that span the width of the floor plan. Use my little highlighter. Now I've done that. Top to bottom, left to right. If I work top to bottom, left to right, then the next thing I'll do is start working on excuse me, these vertical walls. So there's two vertical walls and two sort of end caps. So there's like 6 offsets to get these two walls and the end caps made. One offset is 8 feet 3. That's the first one. The next one is not listed. The next one is blank because all walls are 3.5 inches thick. Then there's a 6 foot one. That's 3 so far. Then there's a 4 foot. The gap between the two walls is 4 feet. Then there's a 6 foot offset. And the final one is 3.5. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 2 foot one, I shouldn't have to do. All right, so up till now, every time I've used the offset command, I've restarted offset to plug in a new distance. This time I won't do that. I'm going to go offset. I'm going to zoom in so you can see this. Well, I mean, the prompt won't get any larger, but the lines will be a little bit better size. Offset, 8 feet 3, enter. I'll left click that first vertical line, move right, and left click. So there's my first offset. Now I'll click that same line. I haven't restarted the command. I'll click the same line, or that new line, not the same line. Click the new line. Left click, I'll move to the right. Now it wants to offset at 8 feet 3, but that window is open. That dynamic input window is open. I can type 3.5, enter. So there's my 3.5 inch line. Then I'll left click that new line, move right, type 6, enter. So there's that line. Left click that new line, move right 4 feet, enter. Left click that new line, move right 6, enter. Left click that new line, move right 3.5, enter. And as I said, I shouldn't need to do the 2 foot one, but I'll try to measure it. I'm going to turn on intersection, and I'll go distance command, endpoint to the intersection of that first, that's 2 feet 1. So that indicates that I don't really need to put the 2 foot 1 inch offset in. It's been put in by my final offset, which was 3.5. So that was 6 offsets. And kind of a shortcut to get there. So I'll use the trim command, and I'm going to zoom in again. I'm going to try to make, basically with my trim command, if you squint, these two wall intersections, they look like capital T. The capital T, the cross on the left T is very long on the left. The cross on the right T is very long on the right, but you can kind of see a big capital T. Trim, I'll open up where extend is. Trim, enter. I'll start by making that 4-foot opening. 1 left click, 2 left click. There's my, so now I've sort of separated these two closets. I can work on one at a time. I don't have to work them all, work on the whole drawing. I can work on one part at a time. I'll left click this vertical line that protrudes down or extends down below the wall I'm making. Left click. These 3 lines that protrude above the wall can go away. Left click, left click, left click. All right, and then the lines that are inside the wall, if you look at the markup, it's very hollow in there. The trim command allows me to get that hollow look. The hollow just indicates, I'll do where the horizontal lines meet the vertical too. There's that hollow look. These hollow wall looks, these cleared out, these are called wall intersections. And the clean wall intersections indicate that these are kind of the same material. The material flows through these open, this is a 2x4 stud up against a 2x4 stud, up against a 2x4 stud. And that's kind of what we're seeing there. That's why those lines are all trimmed out. Trim, enter. I'll left click this bottom line here, this line, just repeating what I did over here. Left click that guy. I'll left click these 3. And I'll left click these 2. There's that. And there's one over here. So I've got more clean wall intersections. Not a bad time to save. So once your friends find out you know AutoCAD, they're going to start asking you AutoCAD favors. Hey, can you draw my deck? Can you draw my basement? Things like that, which is kind of fun. It kind of sharpens the skills. I have fun with it. I haven't done a side job in a while. My brother's a realtor, and he does he flips houses. He flips them so much he doesn't even call them houses anymore. There you go. Terrence backing me up. Your dad does it all the time. It's funny because people are like, "Oh my God, you know magic, so do some magic for me." And my brother, how many houses have I done for my brother? Like a half dozen or something like that. He does some of the repair work, some of the modify work he does on houses doesn't require drawings, or he says they don't. I don't know. But so the ones that do, I'll go in and I'll draw them up. I'll bring a tape measure in my laptop into a building and just start drawing up. I'll measure it up, and I charge my brother like $75 an hour. The family rate. Anybody else I charge 60. But my brother 75. Anyways, so just did a few offsets, a few trims. Never a bad time to save. You might even find yourself doing AutoCAD on your own, like just messing around. I don't know if you can hear that machinery outside the window. I don't see it reacting on the equalizer here, but the landscapers are doing something outside. But all right, I've hit save. I've done some offsets and trims. This is a personal preference of mine that once I get to this point, I've kind of, you sort of start with I'm drawing a floor plan, and then you kind of get to the point now I'm drawing the bedroom, and now I've broken it up, and now I've got closets. I can do one closet and then do the other closet, and I say I work top to bottom, left to right. So to stay with that theme, if you will, I'm going to work on the big closet on the left side of the floor plan. So the big closet, I've already got really 3 of the 4 walls that I need to make that closet. So this shouldn't even be a big job for me. I'm going to offset the bottom or the inside line. I'll highlight it here. I'm going to offset that line 7 feet 9.5 inches down the screen. So offset 7 feet 9.5, enter. Coming up from the bottom, I highlight that line, left click it, move down, left click. So there's the bottom edge of that bottom wall, or top edge of that bottom wall, if you will. all my walls are 3.5. So offset 3.5, enter. I'll left click that new horizontal line, left click, move down the screen and left click. Escape. Can you guys hear that noise? Okay, yeah. It's a... I can't tell. You probably don't care what it is. It's noise. It's not screaming children, so there's that. But this so we're, I don't know if you guys know where we are. We're in Alexandria, Virginia, Northern Virginia, and the part of Alexandria we're in is not like Old Town, which I think whenever I think of Alexandria, Virginia, I think of Old Town Alexandria. We're near Springfield. We're near the Beltway, and we're in an office park called the heck's the name of this office park? I forgot the name of the park. But it's really nice, and the landscapers are always here doing something, so I shouldn't complain because the place is beautiful, but the noise has stopped, so there's that. Cool, pretty quiet. All right. It sounds like a wood chipper on my end. I'm going to hit save. And Matthew, are you in like the Baltimore area, Blackwell? Is that where you guys are? I just forget what that is. Okay. Doesn't matter. How about Terrence? Where are you located? Oh, no way. You're in Alexandria? All right. Well, we could have had class here today. You could have come here. But even still, the traffic is kind of a pain in the neck. And you near Old Town? Oh, well, good for you. Oh, I like Mount Vernon. That's nice down there. Cool. Where did I go? I think I took when I got married. I got married like 18 years ago. I took dance lessons down at the Mount Vernon Rec Center. I think there's an ice rink down there and stuff like that. And but it's just really pretty down there. Just I've actually done my brother did a flip. Did a house down there. Just beautiful neighborhoods. Just nice. Very fortunate. All right. So we've got 4 walls of our floor plan, or this closet drawn in. So I'm going to use the chamfer command. So this will be a new command. And again, I'm going to zoom in. It's going to look a little weird because of the highlights, but the chamfer command asks for distance 1 and distance 2. They're both going to be 2 feet, but the lines we're going to select will be the bottom horizontal and the rightmost vertical, or the outside lines of this closet. So it looks like this. I'll go chamfer. Select first line. If on the command line, if you can see my command line, distance 1 equals 0, distance 2 equals 0. So if I use that, it won't have any result. So I'll click distance, and then for the first chamfer distance, I'll type 24 or 2 feet and hit enter. And then it says specify second chamfer distance. It's guessing I want 2 feet for the second distance, and I do. I'll hit enter. Boom. Now I can just left click. It doesn't matter the order, but it kind of matters the direction. I'm going to left click the bottom horizontal and then the right vertical, but I have to go above the horizontal. If I go below, it's going to chamfer the wrong way. It's going to chamfer down screen. I want it to go up screen. Left click, and that ends the command. So this command is really good for like 2 clicks. Left click one line, left click another. You're chamfered. And then I'll use the offset. I mentioned the best way to maintain that that 3.5 inch thick wall is to offset and then trim. So I'll go offset, 3.5, enter. Left click that angled line, move up into the left. There we go. And then I'll just use the trim command and neaten up that wall intersection, make those walls hollow. Trim, enter, left click. I'm sort of working like fuse on like a lit fuse. You light a fuse on one end and it burns towards the other end. I'm working far away towards the near end. That way I don't leave any little bits of line work behind. There we go. And then I'll trim right there, like so. On this side, I'll go Control Z to get that back. So I've done with my highlighter the 8'3", the 3.5 and the 6, the 4 feet, the 6, and the 2'1", and the 7'9.5". Yeah, so Terrence, yeah, right. In order to get the measurements, a site survey, someone does, right? I mean, like, for a lot of the work that I did, someone else did a site survey. Like, my first engineering firm I worked for was in Bethesda, Maryland, and a lot of the work that we did was up in Philadelphia. And there was a surveyor in Philadelphia. He would measure. Sometimes it was a rooftop. A lot of the work that we did, it would be a plan, but a rooftop. He would measure and he'd send the markup and to us. Or like when I do work for my brother, I'll go into a location and I'll do a survey of the location. Sometimes you can get away with things like you can get a PDF sent to you, and the PDF can be imported into AutoCAD and you can trace it. So there's a couple ways to get that. I'll call it survey data. That's a great way. At some point, someone has to investigate the space to find out, how big is the space. Or in the case of Matthew, you can confirm or deny, or Matt, you can confirm or deny. Like in a design role, if you're doing a brand new design, like if you're doing a site plan, there's codes that you have to, there's setbacks, there's all kinds of little codes you have to go with. There's client input, like I want a building on this site that's this large. Or if you're an architect, you sort of say, I want to have the focal point of this design will be this great room that's the living room, dining room, and kitchen, and that's the priority. Everything else falls away from that. So that there's still a survey involved, but it might be a site plan. How much space do we have to work with on this plan, on this site, and then we start to design from there. So yeah, there's some knowledge that's required to sort of get things, some investigation. Cool. I'm going to finish off this closet. This closet requires 2 2-foot 6-inch offsets. So I'll go offset 2 feet 6, enter. I'll left click the interior. You can kind of see the dimension touches the interior line. I'll left click the interior horizontal line, move down the screen, left click, and then I'll left click that new line I made. They're both 2 feet 6. I'll left click, move down, and left click. So there are my 2 cutting edges. I have to extend first. These 2 lines don't meet the vertical line on the outside. It would cut the inside line, but it won't cut the outside. So I'll open up where trim is, click extend, right click or press enter, and then I'll extend these 2 lines out. I've got these 2 lines extended. Now I can start my trim command. Open up where extend is, trim, right click or enter, snip, snip, snip. Just trim out these lines. Escape when I'm done. Use my highlighter. Escape. Good time to save. Control S works too if you're a keyboard person. Control S. Questions on anything? Other questions? Questions at all? Okay. Cool. All right, so work top to bottom, left to right. Again, it's a habit. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I don't want to, but I'm going to zoom in a little bit because the highlights will make it a little weird if you can ignore them. Let me get rid of them. I'm going to get rid of the highlights for right now. All right, so I'm zooming in so I can really see this other closet. This closet is tricky. It's often tricky in class because most of the offsets that we're doing, we're going down screen, top to bottom, or we're moving in one direction. This one's going in two different directions. You've got an offset. I'll zoom in on this side. This bottom horizontal line gets offset down 4 feet 2 to make the bottom line of this closet. Then it gets offset up 3.5. So that's a change. So I'll go offset 4 feet 2. Enter. I'll left click this line, move down and left click. So there's the bottom edge of that closet, if you will. All my walls are 3.5, so I'll offset this line up 3.5. Offset 3.5. Enter. Left click and I'll go up. I'll exaggerate. I'm going way further than I need to. Left click. Because sometimes if your object snap catches you, it shoots you so fast you can't see the difference. You can't see the change that happened. Excuse me, I had to sneeze there. I didn't want to sneeze on mic. So now to make this little closet, I'm going to use trim and extend. Extend first and then trim to sort of neaten this up. So I'll start with extend. Extend, right click or enter. I'll extend the bottom horizontal line to the leftmost vertical. So that's all the extending I need to do. Then I'll open up where extend is and I'll click trim. Trim, right click or enter. I'll trim the lines off that are excess, if you will, that are well beyond my closet. Left click this little vertical line inside the horizontals. That hollowed out my walls. Left click the vertical between the horizontals. Now I've got completely hollow walls. Escape. And save. So as you're plugging away, Terrence, do you have that the PDF on screen? Okay. Does yours look like mine? Is yours, hey, 4 feet 2, 2 feet 6, EQ? Okay. So I had changed this in earlier versions. I don't like that EQ, but you're going to see it. You're going to see this EQ if you deal with site plans, maybe a little less. I don't deal with a lot of site plans, but if you deal with floor plans, this is kind of a catch-all note, or not catch-all note, but it's sort of it's a way to put information into a small space. The actual distance here is 8 inches, 8.25 inches, and it would be really hard to write 8.25 inches in that tight little space. So if you ever get a dimension that looks like this, it's EQ. It's saying from here to here and here to here are the same distance. What that means is I can use a line. If this were a solid line, I can draw from the middle of that line. That'll put me in the middle of this 2 foot 6 inch opening, and then I can use my offset to create the line work. Here's what it looks like. I'm doing a bad job of explaining it. Making sure I have ortho and object snap on, and I do. I'll left click the line button, line, and then it says specify first point. So my midpoint object snap, right? My object snaps are down here, and midpoint got turned on yesterday. I find the middle of this interior vertical line. That triangle is the midpoint. Left click, and I'll just pull off to the left and left click. That's way more line than I need, but I want a nice long line so I can offset it and so forth. So this line is on the middle of this line. So it's kind of weird that the EQ is inside to outside, but that's kind of what they're showing. It's basically centered. It's going to be centered if you were standing with your back to the other closet, looking at the small closet, that door would look centered. That line is in the middle of what wants to be a 2 foot 6 inch opening. If I divide 2 feet 6 inches in two, I get 1 foot 3. So I'm going to offset this line 1 foot 3 up and 1 foot 3 down. So offset, 1 foot 3, enter. I'll left click the bottom, or I'll left click the only line. I'll left click this line and go down. Again, it doesn't matter the order. Left click that line and go up. All right, so now I've got, if I use my distance tool, I'll left click one endpoint, left click the other, that's 2 feet 6 inches. So I can get rid of the middle line. I'll select that line and delete it. So what was that? How many steps was that? Step one, I drew the line midpoint with ortho on, and then I used the offset. It was like three or four steps to create that. But it allows me to utilize AutoCAD to create the accuracy, to get the accuracy I need to place that opening where I want. And then it's trim, enter. I usually make the opening first, and then cut away the cutting edges, the excess, escape, and save. So I won't use the highlighter anymore because I've dismissed it, but I think you get the idea how that highlighter is helping me. It's kind of doing two things. The highlighter, if I'm working for somebody, and I always do, I'm using the highlighter to say, okay, I've taken care of these directions that you've given me, and it's also telling me what I don't have to look at. Anything that's been highlighted is completed work. I can just move on to the next thing. Okay. Questions at all? Okay, I'm going to zoom in to the bottom left corner. This is the remaining part of this floor plan. And there's a mess of dimensions down here. You know, there's 3 feet 7.5, there's 2 feet 6, there's 6, and then there's an unmarked one, 4 feet, 9 feet. There's a lot of stuff happening here. My personal preference is to take the path of least resistance, much like water would in a sprinkler pipe. So I'm going to offset the bottom line of the large closet down the screen 4 feet. So I'll go offset, make sure I get the right screen selected, offset 4 feet, enter. Left click this horizontal line, move down the screen, left click. That's the top line of the top of the wall of this. This is a water closet, like a toilet room. So I did 4 foot offset, and then all the walls are 3.5. So I'll go offset 3.5, enter. Left click that new line I made, move down and left click. I'll use the highlighter this time. I'll go highlight. I did that guy right there. Now I'm going to get this 9 foot. There's a dimension from to the right side of this vertical wall is 9 feet from the inside vertical wall in the plan. So I'm going to offset this little short 1 foot 3.5 inch or 1 foot 2.5 inch line. I'm going to offset it 9 feet to the left. Offset 9 feet, enter. Left click that vertical line, move left and left click. All right, and then again, all the walls are 3.5, so offset 3.5, enter. Okay, there's sort of incomplete right wall, kind of incomplete top wall, but you know I can close these two up. I can use extend and trim. I haven't used fillet yet though. I want to show you a use for fillet. All right, so we've used the chamfer command on the wall just above the one we're working on now. I'm going to use the drop down and get fillet started. Left click fillet. The command prompt says the current radius for fillet is 0 feet 0 inches. Well, that corner is a 0 feet 0 inch radius fillet. So I'll left click the right vertical, the top horizontal, just pull those two lines together, basically made them touch. Command's over, I restart it, fillet, left click the left vertical, the next horizontal, just brought those two lines together. So the fillet command doesn't have to be used to round corners. That's what it's made for. But if you use fillet with a 0 radius, it just creates a corner. It just brings two lines together. Finally, I got two offsets left to make the door opening. The first one is 3 feet 7.5, and the next one is 2 feet 6. So it looks like this. I'll go offset 3 feet 7.5, enter, left click that vertical line, move right and left click, and then 2 feet 6 is my distance, offset 2 feet 6, enter, left click that vertical line, move right and left click, escape. Now I'll use the trim command to clean up or create the door opening and hollow out the walls basically. So trim, enter, make the door opening first, remove the cutting edges, the excess lines. Missed it. Got it. And then at the base of the vertical wall, I'll trim out the horizontal wall line. And at the left side of the horizontal wall, I'll trim out the vertical wall line. Got it. And escape. I'll zoom out and do the same thing on the other side. Good time to save. So how many commands do we use there? We erased the existing lines, we checked the units, checked the limits, erased the existing lines. A lot of zooming was in there. Rectangle, offset, explode, offset, trim, extend, chamfer, fillet, save, like 12 or 13 commands. It's kind of a culmination of all the commands that we've learned to this point. Questions at all? Questions on anything? Cool. All right. All right, let's do this. We'll save the drawing. It's noon. It's a little after noon. Let's call it 12:05. We'll do an hour for lunch, and we'll start back. I'll just that'll put us at 1:05, let's say, and we'll pick up. We'll measure the drawing. And so forth, bats and cleanup. So enjoy your lunch. I will see you, or you will see me. I will see your texts in an hour. Thanks, guys. Let me stop the video. Let me bring up the PowerPoint so I'm finishing on that